Today on Call for Two, a spoiler-free quick roundup of 5 great fan-made cases for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Are these cases right for you? Stay tuned to find out. Some preliminaries first. This will be a short spoiler-free video. I'm not going to talk about the base game of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective and why it's so great. Lots of videos on that on YouTube. I'm also not going to talk about why I think the free fan-made print and play scenarios are so good and worth your time and special. You can see my prior video on the best kept secret in tabletop detective board gaming for that. What I am going to do here is the first of several videos recommending specific fan-made cases and helping you choose which ones are right for you. But a little reminder about the fan-made cases. There are about 3 dozen in English, some more in foreign languages. They're available primarily on the Board Game Geek files section for the Thames Murders box of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. There are a few available elsewhere. They do vary dramatically in quality, layout, length, and difficulty. And you'll see my other video for suggestions on how to get the most out of them. Okay, so how did I choose the 5 for this first video? Well, for my part, we picked one because we were looking for a Halloween-themed creepy one. We picked another 1 or 2 by looking for reviews of what were generally considered good fan-made cases on Board Game Geek. And then I was contacted by the author of one to try it, and we tried a couple others by the same author of a game we liked. Various reasons. But you can watch my playthroughs of all of these on the YouTube channel. They range from 6 to 13 hours each playthrough, and after each playthrough, then we spend some time reviewing and discussing the case. I obviously have no relation with any of the authors here, no vested interest in whether you play these or whether you like them or which games you pick. All of these games have very high quality writing. They're all quite polished, and they're all as good as any Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective you'll find in the official boxes. I'm going to present them in order from shorter experience to longer experience. But again, this is going to be spoiler free, so I'm just going to touch briefly on the sort of what makes each of these cases different. Now, before I get into it, I want to talk a little bit about the issue of difficulty, because difficulty might be the most potentially useful metric for choosing a case. If you're a very experienced player, you probably don't want to play a case that's super easy, and some of the fan cases may be quite easy. The problem here is that difficulty levels are highly subjective. Your mileage may vary. Depending on whether you play solo or with a group, it's a lot harder to play these games solo. Not harder to play them, not harder to go through the process of playing it, but any given case will be considerably harder without someone else to push back on theories. But the other problem with sort of rating these for difficulty is it's not clear what exactly is difficulty. There's a bunch of pieces that go into that metric. One is sort of how hard is it to figure out the correct solution to get the answers to the questions right. Then there's an issue of if you decide to play it by trying to go to the fewest leads, how hard is it? How many leads you have to go to figure out the answers. But then there's the puzzle of how hard is it to figure out where to go. Some cases you simply just follow all the choices and you'll see everything. Other cases require you to do some spatial reasoning and out-of-the-box reasoning to figure out, well, maybe we should maybe the person got drugs, so let's look up drugstores, or maybe we should talk to the person's doctor. Can we find that person? Let's look in the directory. Some of them require more thinking like that. Some of them actually have logic puzzles or ciphers that have to be decrypted, although that's doesn't tend to be the focus in this genre of game. You occasionally see it here. There's also the issue of difficulty in terms of how much note-taking is asked of you. And that's a skill that if you're used to not taking notes and just doing it by the seat of your pants, sometimes these longer cases can really be challenging to play that way. And then there's occasionally a stamina issue. If you're playing a game for 10, 11 hours, you start to get sloppy if your real world stamina can't keep up. So I think maybe the best we can do with these kinds of games is sort of approximately rank them. And I find that ranking very often correlates with length. So keep that in mind as we go through these 5 cases. Okay, first up in terms of shortest experience is the Magenta book here. This is written by Martinez Conradi in 2021, previously named the Spell Book. This we sort of chose because it's got a sort of a cult theme. We played it for Halloween. It took us 6 hours to play through on YouTube, primarily me, but interacting with the chat. But normally it takes maybe 2 to 3 times as long to play on YouTube with breaks and discussion as it will take you. So maybe 2 hours to play this case. A fairly standard length Sherlock Holmes consulting detective case, maybe moderate difficulty, high quality writing, great theme, great atmosphere. Next up, The Anniversary, another game by Martinez Conradi, published in 2022. Martinez is a sort of savant when it comes to creating these games, and he's able to create them in short periods of time with very good writing. I mean, I don't know what deal with the devil he made to be able to produce so many high-quality Sherlock Holmes consulting detective fan cases. But another sort of occult-adjacent case, it seems like that's Martinez's specialty. It took us about 8 hours to play through this one, so maybe 3-4 hours for you. Again, moderate difficulty, very high-quality writing. This one may be a little more divisive in terms of how you appreciate the story. For me, one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes consulting detective stories, but I think the group I played with didn't quite feel the same way. Everyone liked it a lot. But for me, this hit a sweet spot, but your mileage may vary. Next up, Burglary at Bellamy's. This was written by Martin Vetter way back in 2010. Very traditional Sherlock Holmes consulting detective setup of a intriguing initial scene that you're trying to make sense of. Took us about 8 hours to play, so maybe 3 hours for you. Again, moderate difficulty. Again, high quality writing, some fun, varied pieces of evidence. And one of our favorite sort of mechanics of these games or formats of these games where you've got a bunch of facts that you have a very hard time reconciling, like a scene of crime or details that you just can't even come up with one theory to explain them all consistently. And that can be some of the most enjoyable moments playing these games. Some good long scenes, a tight focus on a small group of people and their psychology. Okay, Burglary at Bellamy. Next up, the third in this set of games by Martinez Conradi, 2023. This is The Curse, another occult adjacent case. This one took us about 10 hours to play, maybe 4 hours for you. Here we've got a higher difficulty case, maybe a sort of a challenge to understand the big picture, to come up with a theory of the case. Again, lots of varied, interesting evidence here, and real rewards for chewing on the theories and debating them. This is a case where we played it for a big chunk of time and weren't quite sure how we felt about it. Then we spent a couple hours just talking about the case, so that by the time we got to the end and we had different theories at the end, one of us got it right, one of us got it wrong. So some people love that kind of feeling of not knowing what answer is correct. And this one was one that really rewarded spending time debating theories. So perhaps this one would be better with a group, so that you really have some differing opinions when you get to the end. Lastly, for this set, the game I played most recently, The Homecoming. This was written by two friends, Pelle Holmgren and Richard Schick from Sweden. Published just recently in 2023. In fact, just published on Board Game Geek. So you might expect, well, it hasn't been play tested, they haven't gotten any feedback, maybe this one's going to be full of errors and problems. But really, this is an extremely polished case. Took us 13 hours to play through it, so maybe 5 or 6 hours for you. Absolutely a long case, very cleverly broken into sort of two parts. Plays with some ideas in the mechanics in terms of a lookup table. I would call this one hard difficulty for various reasons, not just the length, but little details in it. It also feels a little bit different than traditional Sherlock Holmes consulting detective cases in that the entry lengths are uniformly very long. In most Sherlock Holmes consulting detective cases, we've got mostly short, a couple medium length entries, like mostly a couple paragraphs, and then an occasional page-long entry. Here, all of the entries are long. It's very common to have a page-long length entry, and here we occasionally get 2 or 3 page-long entries. And that gives it a slightly different feel, more of a book novel length feel. But the writing is of such extremely high quality and humor and sort of pathos and human nature and psychology that it's a very enjoyable experience. If you play these games for the richness of the text and dialogue, this one may be the sweet spot for you. It also includes an additional map of East London, uses a fan-made map made by someone else in this game. So this is more of an epic Sherlock Holmes consulting detective expansion experience. If you're looking for those epic cases, of which there are a couple that were officially produced in the 80s, this is really worth your attention. Okay, so final thoughts. If you're new to this, where should you start? Which of these cases is right for you? I really don't think you could go wrong with any of these cases, but I would suggest if you haven't played fan cases yet, start at the shortest, the magenta book, and work your way up. This is not to give short shrift to the other fan-made cases that are available. It's just I haven't worked my way through them yet, but there will be more videos coming. We will try to feature all of the fan-made cases. We'll try to play through them all on YouTube. But in general, it's not a bad idea to start at the short ones and work your way up. See where your sweet spot is. Do you like the epic, longest cases you can find, or do you want something that you can just knock out in an hour or two? As a more general principle, a good way to choose a case is to go onto the file section for the Thames Murders box for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. There you'll see 4 or 5 pages of fan-made cases. You can click on it and take a look at the comments. See the cases that people are raving about. In general, if you're looking for a good experience, if you have a low tolerance for things like typos and mistakes, you probably want to wait till an expansion has been published for several months so that people get a chance to play it and report bugs and revisions get made. remember, there are only a handful of people that ever play these fan-made cases, so it can be hard to find all the bugs and just the nature of the game. On the other hand, if you want to play a more active role in helping to playtest and speaking to the author and helping them fine-tune things, go find a case that doesn't have many reviews or hasn't been playtested much, and you're in for a very different kind of experience, one that feels much more participatory in the process. And as I said in my other video, the nature of these fan-made cases are that the person who writes them cannot play them. That's the nature of these mystery games. So if you put yourself in the shoes of someone who's creating this game, they're creating it, and the only real enjoyment they get out of it, aside from the process, they can't play it themselves, is hearing how other people encountered the game and liked it, and their friends, but also the people on Board Game Geek, and they've gone to the trouble, all of the trouble, to sort of polish it and prepare it for others. And here's a real opportunity where you can give some feedback and interact with the author, and it's quite, it can be quite satisfying to do so. And to let someone know that they've created, really these are little pieces of art, to let them know that you appreciate it. You might also check out my video on Remedial Detective School for narrative mystery gamers for more tips on attacking these cases and solving them and enjoying them. And after you play a case, you can come back to the channel and watch us play it and listen to our final thoughts, see where you agree, disagree, maybe you see where you got stuck and we didn't, or where we got stuck and you didn't, and you can see how our final thoughts and review of the game matches yours. And I do hope that if you do watch one of those videos after you play, you'll leave your comments below so we can talk more about what we liked and didn't like. And if you get really ambitious, you might even try creating a case of your own. If you do, send me a message on Board Game Geek. I'd be happy to play it on the channel.